Good evening, everybody. It is 6:32 p.m. on Thursday, June 29th, 2023. I'd like to call this special City Council meeting to order. We are located in the council chambers in Kermit City Hall. And by calling the meeting to order, I'd like to recognize any citizen recognized by the mayor may appear to present pertinent information before the council. The Open Meetings Law, Article 6252-17 VTCS, however, prohibits the council from rendering a decision unless prior notice has been given and posted publicly 72 hours in advance of the meeting, and the person's name and subject appear on the posted agenda. Exceptions may be considered if the request is accompanied by a statement describing the nature of the urgent public necessity requiring the addition to the agenda no less than 4 hours in advance of the meeting. So if you don't mind, we'll stand and do the pledge and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you here today, Father, one more time, Father. We thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for bringing us here today, Father, in one accord. Let us make decisions in one accord. Let us all do what's best for Kermit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right. At this time, I'd like to see if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak. He's going to make you go by yourself.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Harris. I was going to talk to y'all today about the ATV, UTV, four-wheeler thing that happened this week. That one broke my heart because we've always been in the parades and we've always rode in the parades, you know, without any issue. And Hope did help us with that a lot. She would organize that a bunch for us. But I don't want y'all to get the bad impression that we're just a bunch of hoodlums and we just want to run the streets and wreck the streets. And there was a group of four-wheelers last year that those kids were not from here and they were going on the streets. But I do want to, in the future, put it in to at least discuss it again and get it to where future parades, if y'all wanted to, possibly make everyone register their vehicle just like we do in the Christmas parade. Register your vehicle, pay a fee, you know, provide your license, insurance, whatever you have to do, just to ensure that everybody that's going to be there is legitimate and not just somebody that's coming to drive freely in Kermit, you know, with their ATVs. But I would like to do that at a later time because I know we can't do it right now. But hopefully next meeting we can talk about that.
So I think at this point in time, I'm not going to address you specifically because I'm not supposed to, but I don't know if everyone saw the Facebook post that we were able to put out.
Thank you for that.
So it took a team effort with the executive staff, Ms. Frankie, Chief, and myself were able to sit down, come to an agreement. The one thing we want to make sure publicly we mentioned tonight is those vehicles have to be legally brought to the parade and legally taken home after the parade. If it's after hours and they're on the roads, they may be ticketed. So not to you in particular, but yeah, it was a great day today, and I'm glad we were able to do something with
I
that.
did also make a post on Facebook that if they do want to participate in the parade, they need to trailer their vehicles up here.
And home.
Because that will make it safer for everybody. If they're trailered up here, they're left here, picked up at the park. That'll just clear up any other issue.
It's a great thing. Thank
I
you for
do
coming.
thank y'all very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make it short and not very sweet. The trash situation is dire. We're on TCEQ radar. Still no solution other than hire Republic for 6 months with the contract expiring in December. The matter was brought before the council at last Monday's regular council meeting. The council tabled that matter again until budget discussions begin. Everyone keeps insisting this is of major importance, however, some citizens are wondering about the council's priorities. This trash problem, the purchasing of trucks, has been an ongoing discussion for months, yet we still have no solution in sight after December when Republic's contract expires. On June 6th, there was a meeting with various people in attendance, including all 6 council members, to discuss celebration days. Mr. Juan Valenzuela with J&R Electric, who has done our electrical work for celebrations for approximately 3 years, gave a bid for parts only that would upgrade the connections for the vendors and prevent frying anyone's equipment. The bid he gave was for Ameritemp for $46,071.68. This bid was brought up again last Monday's regular council meeting, at which time a council member asked if they would get other bids. Why wasn't this brought up at the June 6th meeting, where possibly other bids could be presented at the regular meeting? On requesting bids from vendors, T2 Consulting, sorry Micah, was brought in without any consulting firms being considered, which admittedly their type of business is desperately needed. But does the council have a pick and choose as to who has the right to just come in and do a job without looking at other possibilities? In the last few months, our city has committed to the possibility of paying out $1,120,518 with no assets to show for it.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
First thing, I want to commend the council for making the decision on Monday. I mean, it was a hard decision. You did it with the information that you were given. The real reason I'm here is I'd like to get Frankie, our mayor, and our chief. Y'all should give them a round of applause. They took a hard situation and turned it into a plus for the community. So, I mean,
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Frankie.
I actually was here when they filmed that, and it was an awesome thing to see our city management work together and give a resolution. Second, I want to speak about this man right here. I've been on the fence ever since I met the guy, and today, working on Deanna's equipment right here actually proved the point to me. We had Mark Taylor and myself here, and we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And we accomplished something that could have spent a lot of money, and we did it spending next to nothing, right? $25. So we should have all have faith in T2 because they came in, and I can see he's doing a hell of a job. And just by what he's told me today, savings of around $30,000, that's what the city needs. We need more of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you three for speaking tonight. We appreciate it. Okay, so our item number 4 on the agenda is to discuss and consider approving the minutes from the special city council meeting on April 11th.
Sorry they were late. They're done.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
They were done and I found no deficiencies on them. Thank you.
What's that?
I said they were done and I found no deficiencies on
Oh,
them.
okay. Well, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to accept the minutes from Tuesday, April 11th, 2023's council meeting as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the special city council meeting on April 11th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Diana, thank you for
Thank you.
getting those
Thank
done.
you for your patience.
I know that was a lot of work. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and consider a request for a waiver of encroachment at 905 Hendrick Street.
Tommy, are you on here? Gus?
I am. Mayor and council, I was at contact with Michelle. This house is about to close, and we run into an issue that we run into sometimes in Kermit. Page Street was planned to be in one place, but it wasn't actually built there. So if you look at the survey that's in your packet, portions of
Is that your recommendation, Thomas?
It is, and this is gonna be something we run into every now and then because it's pretty common for where things were actually built not to be in the same places they were planted, and that can cause some serious title and marketability issues. So I always recommend to vote in favor of maintaining that marketability and removing any title problems, especially when we don't have any intentions of building them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I would just, if the council's going to approve it, I would also request authorization to send a letter to Duff Michelle regarding the council's findings.
Okay.
And he did mention there's nothing that's gonna be built there. Is that correct?
Hendrick Street.
On Hendricks, yeah.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and consider the request for a waiver on item 5 on the agenda, and also, as Thomas advised us to do, for 905 Hendrick Street, and also send the letter to Duff Michelle.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request for waiver of encroachment at 905 Hendrick Street based on the recommendation from our city attorney and to notify Mr. Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item number 6 is to discuss and consider quote from Premier for surveillance in the amount of $26,395 to repair and install additional card spot security. Funds are to be paid from the municipal building security fund.
Okay, so, right now we have, I believe 5 to 6 existing SWAT quarantines, none of them work. So I had this guy give me a quote to repair those and add additional 5 around the whole building, inside. This is a quote. Like I said, it'll be paid out of the security fund, so it won't be general fund. And we do have enough money in there.
You know, it does come with a 5-year parts and labor warranty.
Well, I think that was something that we heard in the audit that's very
Yeah.
important. Something we have to do.
And he's local, he's out of Odessa, and the last one we had was out of San Antonio, so it's kinda hard to get a hold of him to come and repair.
Well, I make a motion that we consider the quote from Premier Surveillance of $26,395.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the quote from Premier Surveillance in the amount of $26,395 to be paid out of the municipal building security fund. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 7 is discuss and consider a quote from Mike the Masonry to install wrought iron fence in front of the Medallion Home, and these funds will be paid out of the Hotel Motel tax.
Now, I'd like to table this because I did not get the quote yet, but I do want y'all to see kinda what the fence will look like, and it will only be in the front, it'll be 6 foot, it'll have the spikes. Right now, it looks like it's got the barbed wire around the top, and I have checked with Hotel Motel tax, and we are able to use that money for that. I just think it would clean up the Medallion Home.
And we might wanna talk to talk to the historical commission to make sure that there's not a certain type of fence you have to
It
put
doesn't
around
matter
there.
on the fence.
It doesn't,
Yeah,
okay.
as long as we're not touching the house.
Okay, cause we wanna make sure we preserve.
Where- How long is this? What is the length?
I don't know.
Is it going like in front of where the derrick used to be, all the way down,
It'll
or
go, yeah,
The whole length of
the
the
whole
front.
length of
the
that?
whole length of the front.
Because there's a big wide gate.
There'll be 2 double gates.
Gates,
there,
okay.
And then a small gate right
And-
on the sidewalk.
So there's a barbed wire fence now, right now?
It's chain link, it's got
Top
barbed wire.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty old.
Yeah. What was the reason for that type of fence?
I wasn't here then.
Oh,
Keep
I'm
people
sure
out.
keep the
Yeah.
security.
okay. Is it like a historical building or
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Would it be a problem if we get this type of fence? Would it be easy for someone to jump over and vandalize it, or?
It'll be 6 foot and it'll have something like this on the top.
Okay.
So it is a 6-foot fence?
Miss Kelsey, you got something?
Yes, I was wondering if you could show us that home
We could show,
picture.
yeah.
There was one in the pocket. Something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And like I said, we can table it till we get more information. I just would like to see that for you guys.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion on item number 7 to go ahead and table it until we receive a affirmative bid from Mike Masonry to install this wrought iron fence around the medallion home.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to table this item until another quote from Mike Masonry is available. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This one.
Rodney first?
Rodney and then
Rodney.
Karina.
And then Karina.
Frankie, do we need more than one quote on that, or
I can get.
just didn't know if we needed it or not? Okay, item number 8 on the agenda is to consider a training presentation and exercise from T2 Professional Consulting on council meeting conduct and procedures. Mr. Michael?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm more than happy to do this agenda item now, and I apologize, I should have thought a little further ahead, but actually the 2 following agenda items are probably of much more concern to everybody else that's here. So I might suggest for consideration, we actually take things out of order, and skip 8 in favor of going to 9 and 10, and then on.
We'll come back to 8. Okay. And I don't need a motion for that. We'll just jump out of order real quick, y'all. Number 9 is to discuss and consider the appointment of a committee to develop a City of Kermit vision, mission, and core values. I don't know if y'all were made aware. I think on Monday in the executive team meeting, Micah had asked to gather up some names for a committee to help start forming a mission statement, core values, and I do have some. I don't know if y'all were made aware of that. If you have anybody that you think you'd like to nominate,
I have two.
okay, you want to go ahead and list them, and then we'll reach out to them.
Yeah, Roy Sin, who's moved there, and Lisa Johnson.
Lisa who?
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah. Roy Sin, Royce, and last name is Senn.
Okay.
Lisa Johnson.
I had one.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if any.
I don't.
Okay. Yvonne Ramos.
Rodney?
I have contacted 2, but they have not gotten back with me, so I don't have a yay or a nay from them. As soon as I do, I will
Okay.
contact Diana
Diana and Frankie.
and Frankie. Hopefully, I might hear from them tomorrow. It may be after the holiday.
And how many do we want to put on that committee?
That
No.
was my,
Yeah, I've got, and I'll throw this out there too, and then we can kind of talk about that. I've got 3 that approached me, and then 1 that I reached out to. So I've got Suki Glover, Mitzi Krager,
Misty.
Misty.
I think it's Misty. isn't it?
Mitzi.
Oh, is it Mitzi?
Mitzi.
Mitzi.
Because she was one of mine.
Okay.
Oh, well, good.
Okay.
Denise Sullivan. I think she's here. She may be on Zoom. And then Chris Isbell. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that too many, Micah? 7?
No, sir. Happy to have them.
Is that enough?
Is that,
And I'll see if mine
and
comes
we may
through.
possibly have a name.
We may possibly have
And
it.
if I may, Mayor, if council's going to take official action in terms of actually nominating these folks, my recommendation, Mr. Hayes, would be to go ahead and include your folks in the nomination. If they decline it, then that's
We can just
perfectly
strike them.
fine.
That way we don't have to nominate again.
Yeah, absolutely. That way we can just go ahead and have it formed, and then if I can get contact information for everybody, I will start the work. So looking forward to working with all of you guys.
Okay, mine would be Tammy Aranda. And I will call her again tomorrow.
Kelsey, do you have anybody you want to select?
Thanks, Frankie.
Yes, Bonnie Harris is here tonight, and she had asked me if she could be included.
Rodney, you just said one?
That'd be the one because
Well,
Mitzi
he could have
Cracker was
Mitzi.
my other one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Mitzi.
That's
Oh,
what I
okay.
said. When he said that, I was like, well, that knocks one off my list.
And so I don't think there would be a problem y'all approving that as a group. So if y'all make a motion to accept those names as we read them, then I think we can go forward from there.
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I could suggest, it would be good to have someone from city staff, perhaps a member of the executive staff that could be a part of us as well, just to make sure that the city as a board is officially represented also.
City staff includes council. City staff or executive staff?
It certainly could include a council member as well. I was there specifically referring to an employee.
Okay, city staff. Do we have anybody city staff
I would
wise?
like to nominate Jackie.
That's a great choice.
I mean, it's the clerk.
Okay,
She's not here, so
so she can't refuse.
can't refuse. I'm her boss.
I think that's a good round out. You don't necessarily need anybody from council, do you?
Not unless somebody really wants to.
But we could come to the meetings,
Sure.
cause they're gonna be open meetings.
They will be open meetings. We'll probably, depending upon if folks can do it, if I'm not necessarily here, we may do them virtually
Oh.
as well. But yeah, absolutely. No secret squirrel stuff.
Okay. So I hear a motion to approve the group.
I'll make a motion to approve the list of names that have been given to serve on the City of Kermit Vision, Missions, and Core Values Committee.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the group at large that was nominated. I believe there's 11 names for the City of Kermit Vision, Mission, and Core Value Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And like Micah said, if somebody wants to decline that, they can, but we've already gone through the vote. We don't have to meet again to do that.
I'll let you know as soon as I hear.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, before we go back to 8, is going to be discuss and consider an initial citywide goals through September of 2024. I think this is another item you challenged the executive team. Is that right?
I did. I can facilitate the discussion if we need to.
I can bring up one of mine, and actually Ms. Hope spoke about it. It's the trash situation, the trash contract and all that. As we mentioned at the end of her term and going into the start of the new council, this has got to be a priority. We can't wait 4 months and then try to figure out what we're going to do. So nobody in the room, or not very many in the room, know, but Frankie and Diana put together a great package for us. We're waiting on a little bit more information, but my goal through September of 2023 is actually to clean up the trash mess that we have, literally and figuratively. So that was my main driving goal.
My goal is to get the streets cleaned, around the stop signs, around the fire hydrants. They all need new coats of paint. They need, our streets need to be painted with the yellow stuff. I know.
I know, I'm waiting on the street sign.
The street signs are better, but we still gotta get all the street signs replaced that we can't see, cause that is a 911 issue. So,
Great
those are
goal.
my goals.
And then I presented mine last meeting, the nuisance goal, the abandoned cars, kind of the same cleaning up permit.
And mine are
The like the nuisance, the abandoned cars.
Nuisance.
We've got this big fan over
Oh,
here.
okay.
So sad you haven't got a fan.
The commercial vehicles, abandoned cars, just enforcing the nuisance, the abandoned buildings.
My goal was almost the same as Judy's. I'm still working on different goals. Yeah, so just street maintenance and stuff like that.
mine is the street maintenance, the potholes, like the one over on part of East Winkler. Some of those streets are in such bad shape. Intersection of the Y of Jeffy Drive and Poplar. You know, just some of those intersections are really have taken a beating and are not getting any worse. I mean, we've got the equipment. I know it's labor issues right now to try to get it fixed.
May I make a statement? The problem that you're gonna have with Jesse is water.
Is the water?
Because all the water from all the sprinklers in the area, the hospital as well as the home, they
It's
all
right there.
huddle in the center.
Yep.
And I know that they have fixed that big pothole in front of the church several times,
And it's there.
but it just still keeps cracking open because of that water.
Water.
And those people running over. So
They-
that's gonna be one of those jobs that is gonna be never ending.
That or go in with the cement like they did.
Like they did.
Like on there. That may be the solution there, because every time it rains, the water stands there for 3 to 4 days, and it just chews up the pavement. And if we have water and then freeze, it just chews it up a little more. So it may be where we have to come down with the cement, continue on down to there anyway. And there's a lot of heavy traffic through there too.
Tony, Chief, Frankie, anybody else on council or executive staff?
Well, all the water leaks, make sure, we get all the water leaks fixed, all the valves put in.
Air conditioning? Yes, we definitely need air conditioning. And the utility girl. Yes,
And the utility what?
the utility girls.
Oh, yes.
Ladies.
Yes.
Women, whatever.
Units for PD.
Units.
Did you hear mine, Dylan?
Huh?
Did you hear mine?
I can't hear nothing. That is so loud right
New
there.
units for the officers.
New unit, okay.
And the equipment they need. My guns are getting outfitted with their guns.
A better gun range, maybe?
Oh, yes.
Tony said water leaks and replacing the water valves.
Yeah, water leaks and water pipes.
There was another one that was brought up a while back too, and it's the water meters. So I think that may go hand in hand with the trash and stuff. So just since this is a 1.5 year goal, we can kind of expand on some of that. So,
I think there's something we started. I don't think we're completely finished with the dog. I
Yes,
think
this-
we've gotten better, but I'd like to continue that goal so we can say goal complete.
And the children.
no, there's some
Instead of-
animal control.
They're still,
Animal
there's-
control.
yeah, there are still
Yeah, we don't
are
want it just to fall off the
complaints.
cliff when
No.
we've gone this far. I'd hate to stop now.
Okay. Some great topics to turn into talking points as T2 works with council and executive staff and city staff. So I think that's some good starting points.
A lot of these, are on the CIP like that, trying to get
Do you,
we'll have a better idea of future repair.
do you want to tell council or anybody in the room what that means? Because I think that's a great.
5-year capital improvement plan.
Does Kelsey have anything?
Kelsey, do you have anything?
Yes, I would like to improve our relationships with both the school district and the county so that we can improve on some of these condemned houses, things like that, to get rid of them and let's figure out something, productive. Maybe we can work with the school on doing teacher housing or something along those lines to further clean things up. Also the trash, the transfer station. Did Tony have a chance to go look at the one in Hastings yet?
Kelsey, I have in your packet, of course, you were, I don't know why you didn't make the meeting.
Yeah.
But I've got a, Park Hill built Pegasus a couple of years ago. I've got pictures and an estimated cost of what it costs, so when you get out and about, it'll be in your mailbox.
Okay, thank you.
Frankie, Diana, that was another good packet that we saw last week. So very informative. Okay, so those were just kind of topic items to discuss. Now we can move back to item number 8, which is training presentation and exercise from T2 in regards to council meeting conduct and procedures. Y'all are welcome to stay. Y'all are welcome to get some cool air, whatever y'all like to do. Micah?
Yeah, turn it off. I'm not turning it off, I cannot turn it off.
She's losing her hearing.
Oh, what that one?
I need the whole floor. Is that what we did last
I
time?
think so. Or, well, no, it was one at a time should work, but this will be.
So as they're getting that set up, I don't know if folks in the chamber are aware, but the T2 group is the consulting group that came in and did the initial audit. They've also been unanimously approved by council to do an intensive reset with employees and staff and vendors and things of that nature. Part of that also involved council and just trying to help us learn how to better manage the city as far as the council would go. And so we've opened that up and we're taking our schooling as the executive team and everybody else is. So that's where we're at tonight, y'all.
I haven't bust out any rulers yet, hopefully it's good. No, it's a super pleasure to be here again, mayor and council, executive staff, members of the community. We have had an amazing welcome and we're happy to be here. This is a great community to work in and we're having a ball. So what's coming tonight, I'm going to walk you through, I'm sure I killed what few trees we have in the community of Kermit in preparing all this information for you, but I'll walk you through the materials that you've got. We're going to talk about some verification of training requirements. I won't ask you to say if you've done it yet, but if you haven't, we'll get that taken care of after the council meeting. We'll walk through very briefly some elements of the Public Information Act, spend a little bit more time on the Open Meetings Act, and then talk about some council procedures and some new forms and so on. I did try in your packet, at least on the presentation that I'm working through, to save a few trees by printing front and back, so you may have to flop things around as we move forward there. Council, all of you should have, within 90 days of your appointment, completed 2 required trainings. These are easy trainings to complete. They can be completed on the Texas Attorney General's website. And so if you haven't done that yet, I'll get you the information that you need. But there's two things for you to do there, and then a certificate for you to complete, and then that certificate needs to be filed with Ms. Diana to have on hand. But that's required by law for you to complete that training. This training today is not going to suffice for it, although we are going to cover a number of things that are on there. So anyway, I can help you all get that taken care of if you haven't yet. So the Public Information Act. The PIA, its purpose really relies on the fact that the vast majority of what we do in government is public record. There's very, very little that is confidential. Personnel records are confidential, things that happen within executive session is confidential, but pretty much if there's anything in any format, whether that be a piece of paper or something that is recorded on a cell phone or on a hard drive, anything like that, most of those records are public. And you all could get requests for public information. And as of earlier this week, I know that Ms. Diana has formally put in place a policy now for how the city is to handle open records requests, and I believe pretty much everybody can just be directed to the city secretary's office. But the city's now in compliance with what's required from the state in terms of posting how that procedure is supposed to work. It's on the bulletin boards now, and if it's not on the website, it will be very, very short. So that's good. As I mentioned, records are very broad. They can really contain about anything in any format, not just paper records, things like that. Some don'ts. You can't refuse to provide public information. That's a no-no. Official misconduct if that happens. You don't want to provide any of the confidential information, and you don't want to destroy any government information. So once something becomes a government record, there's actually all kinds of rules about retention periods and things like that, about how long that stuff is supposed to stick around. So just want you to be aware of all of that. The Open Meetings Act. So this is probably the most important thing that we'll go over. You all actually have as part of your packet the Open Meetings Act handbook. It's the pretty one with the gate on it from the Attorney General's office. It's about 145 pages long. It is a great reference material for all kinds of things, and I've tried to pull out a lot of what is the most important part of that act for you here in this training. Basically, when you all get together and there's any kind of discussion of city business, then that's a meeting. And it's got to be open unless it falls under one of the 25 exceptions, and we'll talk a little bit about that. When you get together to have a meeting, there has to be a quorum. Well, a quorum is a majority of the governing body, and that's authorized seats. So let's just suppose that Councilmember Susie Joe resigns tomorrow. That doesn't decrease the quorum. The quorum is still based on the fact that there are 6 of you total, 5 voting members, right? So that's what the quorum is based on, those authorized number of seats, if you will, not necessarily the number of open positions, should that ever occur. You gotta have quorum anytime that there's a meeting, and meetings occur anytime that there is a quorum of you together, a majority of you together, and it's not one of these things that are listed. So y'all can go hang out at a social function together, just don't talk about city business. All of you could go, that's okay. You can go to a convention or a workshop. Every year, many cities send all of their councils to the Texas Municipal League, for example, and they get together and have a good time and take pictures and so forth. That's all fine, as long as you don't discuss city business while you're there. Ceremonial events, press conferences, things like that. Really, you all can get together as a group, and as long as no formal action is taken and you don't discuss city business, then you're okay. The place, and I've got another part of this slide later on, but where sometimes councils will get into trouble is Susie will call John and say, and Susie and John are both council members, and Susie says, hey John, we got this thing coming up, and how do you feel about it? This is how I'm planning on voting, and they have discussion, and then Susie says, okay John, you call George and tell George about our conversation and all of what we talked about and how I'm planning to vote and how you're planning to vote. You can't do that, okay? Now, Susie can call John and have a conversation. Susie can call George and have a conversation, as long as we're not playing this passing of information game between the two, okay? Otherwise, then that becomes a potential violation. Make sense? All right, cool. So, open meetings notice requirements. Basically, anytime that the council is going to have a meeting, whether it be a regular meeting, a workshop, or a special meeting, unless it's an emergency, you got to provide 72 hours of notice. Now the law is, if there is an emergency, 1 hour worth of notice. It used to be 4, then it was 2, and now it's 1. Really, the reason that is because the legislator has realized that if it's a true emergency, you might not have more than an hour's worth of time to get together the council. So those are the notice requirements. When there's actually a specific case where a council had a meeting and they actually chose not to take any action on an item that was on the agenda, and the public got very upset because they did not take action. And the Texas courts ruled, because then they tried to have an emergency meeting, and the Texas courts ruled, nope, just because you didn't take any action when you had something on the meeting before, that doesn't qualify as a potential emergency. Now, there's not been a case come before the courts that I'm aware of where action that was taken causes some kind of public outcry, but the emergency requirements that are listed in the code are really specific, and you got to rise to a pretty high level of standard in order to make that be an emergency and qualify for the short notice requirement. Agenda items have got to be specific. This is a place where more detail is preferred versus less. And all the agenda items that I've seen come out have done a pretty good job of listing the detail necessary so that the public can read that and feel like, I have an idea of what's coming. That's the whole point of that. Internet posting is also required on the city's website. In general, the city does a really good job of that, of making sure at the same time that the posting goes up on the bulletin boards, that it also goes up on the website. Tonight's meeting, we're cooking with gas. We're less than 45 minutes in, and I think I'm the last agenda item, so that's good, and I'll be mindful of that. But suppose that one of your meetings was really, really long, and you posted it, and everybody is like, you know what, we're tired, it is time to go home. You can do that, and you can pick up the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning without having to post another notice. That's a continuation. That's totally fine to do that. So just have that in your back pocket if you've got a meeting that starts to go super, super long. All right. Notice violation consequences. So if you have a meeting and you didn't happen to get things posted and you take action, then any and all of that action that was taken in the meeting can be voided. And that would come through civil litigation, things like that, an injunction that somebody files if they don't like action that you've taken. But if you find yourself in a situation where we find out we didn't actually meet the notice requirement, we got together as a council and we did take some action, the remedy for that is to ratify it after the fact. So at the next meeting that is properly posted with the time requirements, you have an agenda item that says, hey, we realize we screwed up, we didn't actually get the notice done, but everything we did then, we actually really meant to do, and we want to do that. Case law supports you on that. So that's how you can fix issues that happen if you should happen to erroneously violate the notice requirement. All right, conduct of open meetings. Got to have a quorum to get started. If a quorum should happen to go away, so somebody walks out, you know, something happens, whatever, then the meeting has to be recessed until such time as that quorum is reestablished. During public comments, so there's a lot of different practices on this, and in general, what I've kind of noticed is that here in Kermit, there's that section at the beginning where folks can come up and talk about any item that is not on the agenda. That's fine, and the way, for example, that the item was handled tonight, there was a topic that was brought up. It wasn't on the agenda. The governing body responded with statements of fact or quoted a standing policy. So that's perfectly fine. Any deliberation on any topics that are brought up during public comments like that for an item that's not on the agenda has to be limited to directing that be posted on a future agenda when proper notice is required or provided. Public comments continue. So lots of different ways to do this. You can do or continue to do what you're doing, and that's kind of have that one general section for items not on the agenda, and then also allow for an opportunity for public comment on each agenda item as it comes up. And I have some proposals on how to do that. Speakers can be reasonably limited on the time that they are recognized to speak. And you know, at really, really busy city council meetings, sometimes what you'll see is a limitation of, say, 3 minutes or 4 minutes per speaker. And ideally, if you have something that's very contentious where folks are speaking on both sides, you want to try to alternate back and forth between the sides of the issues. The council can also say, okay, we're going to go into public comment at this time and say we're going to allot 30 minutes, for example, for the entirety of public comment. Even if you have, say, 15 people that want to speak and the first 10 take 3 minutes each, then the last 5 don't get to speak, unless you were to vote generally by 2/3 to let that continue. But that is a reasonable limitation so that you can still get your business done, yet try to allow as many folks to communicate as possible. If you happen to know that citizens are coming and they are going to talk about something, and you have the opportunity 72 hours before the meeting to actually put that item down as an agenda item, if it's not already, you ought to do that. So that, you know, A, that's just responsive. B, if you need to take action on that item, it's on the agenda and you can do it. And public comments are not, of course, the same as public hearings. There are different things like changes in taxation, budget approvals, things like that, that actually lawfully require public hearings, and sometimes more than one that have to be held at different times. Any comments, questions about any of that? Awesome. All right, so this is kind of a generally speaking way, as you're considering each individual item, that I recommend a lot of councils occur, and it kind of occurs this way now. So the presiding officer, in this case usually the mayor, announces, all right, we're up for agenda item whatever, and there's a person that is going to present that item to the council. Okay. And we'll be working with executive staff on some ways to do that in kind of a standardized process. But every agenda item that comes up is kind of a presentation to the council. Then there is an opportunity for council members to ask questions of the presenter or ask questions of staff as it relates to that item to help you in your decision-making process. Then there, in general, should be the opportunity for the public to speak on the matter. One thing that I would highly recommend as we work through things is it's a small environment, it's a small room, we're a tight community, but it really does help to keep things on track if we actually recognize speakers, whether that be on the council, or that be a staff member, or that be in public, just so that we establish order. And you don't have that folks talking over one another. It will make Miss Diana's life easier. If you don't like me and you think that's stupid for Kermit, whatever, it'll help Diana. Will it not?
Yes, it will.
There you go. So something to think about that way. Ideally, and this comes from Robert's Rules, this comes from just overall parliamentary procedure, after you've got your presentation, you all get the opportunity to ask questions, then the public gets to comment. Ideally, at that point in time, one of you, if you're going to take action, would actually make a motion at that point. I move to approve agenda item number 13, or whatever the case may be that you want to do. And then, if somebody else likes that, you would say, I second that. And then we have a motion on the floor that's properly seconded, and then you can debate, as a council only, that motion that is then on the floor. If that motion never happens, or if that motion doesn't get a second, there is no action before you, and you can just move on. You don't have to move to table agenda items that you're not going to take action.
Just move
That
on.
will, pardon?
Just move on.
Correct. Yes. If there is no motion on the floor, then there's no action before you. That will also make Miss Diana's life easier, but she doesn't have to record a whole nother vote each time that you choose to table something or move forward.
So basically, it would be thrown out because of the lack of a second.
Or there not being any motion at
No
all.
action was taken because,
Correct.
due to a lack of a second.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. From a practicality standpoint, lots of times that it's going to be council discussion and hang on, I can't see my other slide there.
Do I need to move that box?
Nope, we're good on the From a practicality standpoint, lots of times what's going to happen after the public comment is you're going to have council discussion, really, and kind of iron things out, have that debate. Then there's going to be a motion. If there's a second, then there's going to be a vote. I'm not saying that that's horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but that is practically kind of what happens now, and you may or may not choose to keep done. But again, I do recommend we maybe try to adopt a little bit more formality in terms of recognizing speakers as you move forward. All right. Okay, closed sessions meeting. There may be, I was thinking about myself saying this, and I'm still going to say it, maybe 50 ways to leave your lover. There is only 25 ways to have a closed session. I was supposed to garner some laughter. All right, only 25 ways to have a closed meeting. 3 of the most common are the ones that are listed on here: attorney consultations, that's on any pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offers, that kind of thing, or at such time when the attorney needs to talk to you in a closed session in order to comply with the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, and licensed attorneys know all about that. Personnel matters, and then if you think about like buying a house, and you don't want to divulge, your strategy in terms of what you're going to bid or how you're going to negotiate, that kind of thing, that's protected in a closed session environment. Any action that's going to be taken in general has to happen back in open session, so you can talk. What you can't do in a closed session is basically do a vote and then come out here and do the same vote again. You can have very candid conversations saying, well, I'm leaning toward doing X or whatever, but that vote needs to occur in open session. Notice requirements are the same, so in case you've got some sort of meeting coming up where the entirety of it is going to be an executive session, you still have to meet the 72-hour requirements, or a 1 hour if it's a true emergency. You got to convene an open session first, and you all have been doing a good job of this in all the recent agendas that I've seen, but when you are going to have an executive session item or a closed session item, you have to identify the specific provision within the Open Meetings Act that gives you that authorization, one of the 25 that come up. You have to keep a certified agenda or a recording. So the certified agenda of whatever goes on in the executive session, it sounds tough, but the way that you all do it now is actually perfect, because you vote to go into executive session, you have your chat, you come back, you reconvene. Those are time stamped, so when it both starts and it stops, that's a required component of that certified agenda. And then there has to be a record of any action that's taken. And so when you come back, Mayor, and you say, is there any action to be taken? And then somebody either does or doesn't make a motion, and that ultimate action occurs, or Ms. Diana records, no action was taken as a result of executive session, you're good to go. Or you can record the thing. Literally, like you can go into the private room and you can record it. Those recordings are confidential. Should you choose to do that, those have to be retained for a period of at least 2 years and under lock and key and all that good stuff. Most governing bodies choose to go with the certified agenda. The only right to attend a closed meeting is granted to you all as members of the governing body. No one else is entitled or has the right to attend that closed session with you, as long as it's legal. Not the attorney, not any member of the executive staff, no citizens, just you have the right. Now you can invite anyone to come into your closed session as you see fit, but the only folks that have the right are you. All right. Use of technology. So over the years, as technology has gotten better, certainly with the recent COVID disaster and all that good stuff, the state legislature has embraced technology as another way to try and do business efficiently. They're not real keen on just teleconference. So, that being somebody having their cell phone out and putting it on speakerphone and people talking around the table, that kind of a thing. That really is only allowed in emergencies when it's very difficult to get a quorum of you together physically. So teleconference is not really used very much at all, but it is possible. And there's several requirements that have to be met if you have to be in just a teleconference without video. Video conference, on the other hand, is allowable anytime. Even post-COVID. A lot of cities think that now that COVID's over, you can't do video conference. That's not true. You absolutely can. There just has to be a quorum physically present in some place. So here, if there's 3 of you, then the others, as Kelsey is doing this evening, able to join via video conference, and that is okay. There has to be 2-way video and audio feed. So, technically there, if we've got a council member that's out like this, and they're to be counted as part of the meeting when they're speaking, and actually the entire time, they're supposed to be on video. and basically that's part of the open meetings of knowing that, hey, a member of the public is watching and they're saying, okay, I know that this council member was actually awake and present and listening to everything that was going on. If the feed or connectivity is lost for anybody that is attending via video conference, then basically that person's not there. If that affects quorum as a whole, then you have to recess until that feed is regained. The council can allow public commentary remotely, should you so choose. There's a lot of logistical issues of trying to do that. But if the video conference is occurring and the group of you a quorum of you is meeting physically, then all of the public commentary can be required to occur in the physical space rather than on video conference. And last piece of use of technology. One of the things that got recently approved is this whole notion of an online message board for council. This is actually pretty cool. And whether or not different folks have different views about a prominent Texas city that is currently using it, it's an interesting way to interact with the community. But a message board could be placed on the City of Kermit's website, and all of you can have access to it, and you can all go on at any time and talk about whatever you want. And the public can come on and talk with you about it at any time, about whatever you want. And it does not violate the Open Meetings Act, it doesn't violate quorums, none of that stuff. So that is an interesting way to interact routinely with your community. If that's something that you may be interested in, we can help in getting that set up. Broadcasting meetings over the internet. You all are not required to do that because population is small, but you do, and very happy that everything is now working beautifully. And I checked it earlier. This is posting to YouTube live. It's all good. So that's great that you are utilizing that. Since you are doing it, you might as well comply with what is up there. It means that whenever you broadcast over the internet, you've got to have that recording available within 7 days. YouTube is going to help you out and make it available as soon as it gets finished processing it, which will just be in a few minutes. But the recording does have to be posted within 7 days, and you have to retain those recordings for a period of not less than 2 years. Okay, rules of parliamentary procedure. There's a quote here that I took directly out of the handbook for mayors and council members, which is this booklet that you have with you. This is an amazing booklet. It is not the most riveting thing to read, but it would be a good idea if you have an opportunity to go through it. But it says parliamentary procedure is a tool, not a bludgeon, that is used to ensure the will of the majority prevails while the right of the minority to be heard is protected. I mean, that really is true in democratic government across the board. Is the will of the majority is what's important, but you gotta have an opportunity for those that are in a smaller group to actually be heard. So we don't want to weaponize parliamentary procedure, but when used properly, it does help. A lot of people think that city council meetings have to be governed by Robert's Rules of Order. That's not correct. A city council can adopt any parliamentary rules that you wish to utilize. Robert's Rules is a set. It is a good set, but it's not the only show and tell. So there's some wiggle room there. What's important is that whatever rules you adopt are reasonable and that you apply them consistently. That's the most important piece. You start adopting different rules on different days for different folks, then that can be a real struggle. That's the end of the official presentation. And then we'll move into a couple of other things. So in your packet, you also have this key legal requirements. This is a pretty short document. And what this does is it highlights the places, unfortunately, where you as an elected leader can get into trouble. So it gives you some really good don'ts and things just to be aware of so that you don't find yourself engaging in some kind of conduct that might result in a civil litigation toward yourself or toward the city or criminal penalties toward yourself. So really good information there to have as a resource. I also provided you with this one sheet, front and back. It's Robert's Rules of Order Simplified. This is a really, really good document that really breaks down. I mean, Robert's Rules of Order is a thick book. Mine's got a gajillion little tabs in it from my days back years ago. But this page is very concise in terms of, it even tells you like how to do things. You want to change some of the wording in a motion under discussion, and it tells you exactly what to do here in order to do that. So a good little tool for you to have in that situation. Okay, last thing. So in your packet, you have two pieces of paper that look like this. These are agendas that I created. The one that is just front and back is an agenda template. Okay, so all it is it's a template with no information on it other than what the typical order of business might be. So, and you have most of these kinds of things in your existing agendas, but I'll point out a couple of things that are new. So, I would suggest that we add where your council meetings are going to be consistently live streamed at through the city's YouTube channel. So we'll be able to publish that. There is many city councils will allow people to pre-register to speak at the council meeting. So folks tonight came and Mayor asked, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? And they come up and spoke, and that worked great. And that's totally fine. Here, and you don't want to stop that. But here's the benefit if you allow folks to pre-register to speak. Number one, those who register first can speak first if they want. It establishes some order like that. Number two, while they don't have to tell you, if they do tell you what they plan to talk about, particularly if it's more than 72 hours in advance, you might be able to get something on the agenda item to actually do something about what it is that they want to speak about. Furthermore, it was set up to staff for if they're coming to complain and they're going to be upfront and say what their complaint is, for the staff to do some research and actually have information available to either present to that person privately if it's something that can't be discussed or whatever. But it's just, it never hurts to allow folks to pre-register to speak at a council meeting. A lot of cities have things set up where there is a group email to the entire council that anyone can access at any time, and they can direct comments to the council. So perhaps someone from the public has an opinion about something, but they can't come, but they want the council to know. So they can submit their thoughts, and that would go straight to all of you, also to the city manager and whomever else that you want to have. It's just another way of potentially getting that feedback to the council. Then you go into the order of things. Everything here you'll see is just what you have with the exception of roll call. You are a small council, it's easy to tell who's here and who's not, so you don't necessarily have to have that. The next is approval of minutes. You have that, that's easy. And actually, Mr. Hayes, the way that you made that motion earlier tonight is pretty much exactly like what's written here. So you approve the minutes as presented. That was your motion. It was easily taken care of, very efficient, good stuff. Highly recommend that this council consider starting to utilize a consent agenda. So what a consent agenda is that members of the executive staff can put together proposals that are generally non-controversial. They're pretty easy. Lots of times, like the bills that you all approve every month, approving the expenditures. Put that baby on the consent agenda. You get to see all of that stuff. It's in your packet ahead of time, but that saves, for every item that's on the consent agenda, that saves a whole set of discussion and a vote of going through. And if you want to pull any item from the consent agenda at any meeting, that is super easy to do. Any one of you can do that. I want to consider item 6A, for example, individually. Mayor pulls it out, and so then you can say, I move to approve consent agenda items 6B through D, for example. And that's it, and it's all done together. So highly, highly recommend that we consider adopting a consent agenda. I'll show you an example of that later on. Presentations by citizens, we've talked about that. Public hearings, if you have to have a public hearing, usually you won't. Old business, this would be for where all the stuff that you table with the specific intent of bringing it up at a future council meeting. This is where that stuff would be, is under that old business, for things that you definitely want to do. New business you all are super familiar with, reports of advisory boards and commissions. You're familiar with that. Items from council. There is the opportunity for each of you at each meeting to have the opportunity to speak on these items. So that's presenting matters other than ordinances, resolutions, or other matters requiring formal action. You can, announce things like, perhaps you're a member of a civic group in town and you want to share that information. This is a place that you can do that. Staff reports or staff reports, other announcements from city staff, and then adjournment. Any questions about this as a potential template? Then the last and final thing is actually this agenda for today that I put into that template. So as a difference for this, the premier surveillance agenda item that you all considered, I listed that on the consent agenda. It's non-controversial. As you mentioned, Councilwoman Chavez, that was mentioned in the audit, and Frankie had notated, I've got this quote, I'll bring it before you. So that could have potentially been an opportunity just to save some time for efficiency's sake. And then also, and now I know exactly why, because Frankie didn't have the quote yet for micromasonry, but if she did, and she's already outlining, where that's going to be paid from, that could have been another consent agenda item. So at the beginning of the meeting, Mayor, you would have said, okay, moving on to our consent agenda, are there any items that we want to pull? Hearing none, do I hear a motion? And someone can say, I move to approve consent agenda items A and items A1 and A2. Or I just move to approve the entire consent agenda because that is the entire consent agenda. One motion, one vote, we're done. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. We didn't have any, we did have presentations by citizens and comments of the public. That's totally fine. That would have happened exactly the same way that it did. There were no public hearings, no old business, and then we have the new business that would have been on here. So the only thing that I'm suggesting with this adoption is, suppose you get to that, the waiver of the encroachment. So after Mr. Duckworth made his presentation, because that would have been the presentation, you would have said, are there any questions from council? Entertain those questions. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on that item? No. And then, is there any action? Council member says, I move to approve item number 9A. And that's it. So, does that feel like that might make your job up there a little quicker, a little easier to do? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Like we said, the agenda items, right? Consent?
Yes.
All items. We didn't have A, B, and C. One motion and go for all three.
Correct.
Oh, wonderful.
If someone said, yeah, I move to approve the consent agenda. If none of them want to pull anything, that is all it takes, and then it's done. And you'll notice on that consent agenda item, the way that I added some language there. So, estimate from Premier Surveillance in the amount of $26,295 to repair, install additional physical security measures on the police department and city hall, and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents. So your approval of that item allows her, and then any designees of her as the city manager, to do anything to accomplish that item that you've approved.
But we could not have approved item number 2 on that because we did not have an amount. So
Didn't have a
you would
quote.
just, the motion would be just to accept item number 6A,
Yes, sir. 6A1 in this
or
case.
C, or whatever, yeah, 6A1,
Yes, sir.
Now, can all of the minutes, like sometimes we have several weeks, months of meetings, we could do that on the consent
100%.
agenda? Okay.
That could be under the consent agenda, or you could do it in exactly the same way. So let's suppose you've got 3 or 4 council meetings, minutes that are listed on here. Then after mayor gets to that item, and are there any questions, whatever, there's none, okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve, agenda item number 4, A, B, C, and D,
Okay.
whatever.
Cool.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
Got any homework for us?
You know,
It's a holiday weekend.
do a little bit of reading, you know.
So when you were talking about the stuff that you have to do when you get elected,
Yes,
is that every time you get elected, or you just do it?
it's within 90 days of taking office.
So-
And, so, yes, and the reason is because every time the legislature meets every 2 years, and my good friend Chief knows this, the laws change. And so you have to take the new version of the training, and you'll actually see this when you take the training that's offered through the AG's office. They have about 55 minutes worth of the video, and then they stop it, and then there's a new video because they're addressing things that have changed by new actions of the legislature. So yes, ma'am.
Because we all three have. I haven't done mine. Have you done yours? I'm still.
I wasn't gonna call you out.
No, I mean, I knew I had to
We
get
gotta
there. We
get
have
that
until what,
taken
I think I
August
did
the
mine the
15th?
second time I was.
Cybersecurity you'll have till August.
'Cause
Same on the other.
there's
I
2
was
of them,
looking for that
cybersecurity
today.
and.
Where's, I put it in your packets with the link, but you can come to my office and I can.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the information and booklets.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Serena and, Rodney were reelected. Okay, Kelsey was in county one. Kelsey already did her Opens Act, her, everything. I got her to do it.
Sweet.
Do they have to do it over again?
Yes.
And you said yes.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah. Did you get that to you, right?
So will you make sure that I read the ones?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Alrighty. Did y'all learn anything from Micah's presentation?
Appreciate it.
Of course.
Just one more thing. I don't think y'all heard him.
Number 11, I make a motion that we adjourn council meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn city council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
I beat
opposed?
you to it.
It is 7:45 p.m.
Well, I'm gonna start sharing the motions around here.
Y'all, thank y'all all very much.
Right?
I hope I didn't bore you too bad, but